Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Labrynth deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is an absolutely amazing control deck that I've been super excited to play ever since it was announced. This deck is really amazing because you can throw all sorts of generic trap cards into this deck and it just is a really fun deck to play. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name screwed during a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of our boss monster, lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle. This card is absolutely amazing with some really awesome effects. That your opponent cannot activate monster effects in response to the activation of your normal trap cards, which is a really good effect just to give your traps a little bit of protection. She also has a really good effect that you can only use each of the following effects this card once per turn, that you can target a normal trap in the graveyard and set it to your field, but it cannot be activated unless you control a fiend monster, which is not that big of a deal because if this card's on the field, to put the trap card on the field, you're going to have a fiend on the field. It also has the ability that if another monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect, except during the damage step, you can destroy a card that your opponent's in your opponent's hand at random or their field, which is absolutely amazing. So with a card like Compulse, you're bouncing a monster and then popping a card in their hand or on their field, which is a really insane thing for this card to do. We then play 3 copies of Ariana. Ariana is a really good 3 of in the deck. This card is just so good as a 3 of that you always want to see in your hand, because she has the ability, if this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Labrynth card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card. And if another monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect, except during damage step, you can draw a card and then activate this effect that from your hand you can either special summon a fiend monster or set a spell or trap, making it super easy to special summon out your copy of lovely Labrynth to your side of the field. So this card is a definite 3 of in this deck. And then play just a single copy of Ariana. Ariana is just a good 1 of. I don't feel like you need any more than a single copy of Ariana. She's a great card, but I feel like 1 is totally fine in this particular build. She has the ability you can send a normal trap from your hand or that set on your field to the graveyard to special summon a level 4 lower fiend monster from your deck in defense position, except another copy of this card. If another monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect, except during the damage step, you can draw a card and then apply the effect that from your hand you can either special summon a fiend monster or set a spell or trap, just like your copy of Ariana, which is a great effect to have on both of these cards. And then play 3 copies of the Chandelier. Chandelier is a great 3 of. I did consider playing this card as a 2 of, but I feel like 3 is the best number for this card. It's a really good card that has the ability that quick effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the grave, and then discard any card to set a Labrynth spell or trap from your hand or deck, which is a great effect so you can get to your copy of Welcome Labrynth extremely quickly. It also has the ability if a monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect while this card's in the grave, then you can add this card back to your hand, which is a really good effect that you can use this card over and over again. I then play 3 copies of Stovey Torby. Stovey Torby is just so cute. I love this card. It's really good. It's a really cool card, and it has the ability that once per turn, you can send this card from your hand or field to the grave, discard a card, and then set a Labrynth spell or trap from your hand or deck, just like your copy of Chandelier. But it also has the ability that if a monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect while this card's in the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card to your side of the field, which is a really good effect. The discard can basically put itself on your side of the field, but it does have low attack points, which is the only downside to this card. But it's a really good card overall because you can use it for link summoning, which is really cool. I then play 3 copies of Absolute King Backjack. Absolute King Backjack is a definite 3 of in this deck because it works so well with trap cards in this particular build, because it can basically let you pick the top 3 of your deck and look at those 3 cards, which is really good. Because during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard and excavate the top card of your deck. And if it's a normal trap, you get to set it to your field. Otherwise, you send it to the grave. And that set card can be activated this turn. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, then you can look at the top 3 cards cards in your deck and then place them on top of your deck in any order, which is really good because then you know what you're going to excavate. So this card is a great normal summon, and then link it away for your copy of Link Kuriboh to be able to then look at the top 3 and get the exact excavation that you want off this card to get you an additional trap on the field, which is really, really nice, and to know what you're going to draw during the following turn, because you can put what you want to excavate on top and then what you want to draw as the next card down, which is really, really cool. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, I'm going to be playing 2 copies of Labrynth. This card is a really interesting card and just really good overall as a 2-of. You really don't need 3 copies of this card, but it's really good because it has the ability, if you activate a set Welcome Labrynth normal trap card, you can add this additional effect to that card's effect at resolution. Also, after that, destroy 1 card on the field. And if you activate a non-Labrynth normal trap card, except during the damage step, you can special summon a Fiend monster from your hand or grave, which is a really good effect because we have multiple Fiend monsters in this deck that are going to be sending themselves to the graveyard, so this card can just instantly get them back on the field to help you link climb into some really powerful monsters. And then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance just so that we can dig through the deck a little bit faster so we can get to our trap cards, which is not that big of a deal to be able to banish 6 from the extra deck, because we do have plenty of different options in the extra deck and we're just using it as a toolbox anyways. So this card is really good to give us a draw too. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. And we play a lot of traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Welcome Labrynth. This card is a definite 3-of in the deck. This card is really, really, really good. It has the ability that you get to special summon out a Labrynth monster from your deck. Also, until the end of the next turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the deck or the extra deck except Fiend monsters, which is not that big of a deal because we're pretty much only going to summon Fiends anyways, but this card gets you to your copy of Lovely Labrynth extremely quickly, which is absolutely amazing. It also has the ability, if a monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect while this card's in the grave, except the turn it was sent there, then you can set this card back to your field, letting you get an additional Fiend monster onto your side of the field, or an additional Labrynth monster onto your side of the field, which is really, really cool. I then play 3 copies of Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch. This card is really good for any Fiend deck, and it's just overall amazing for this build, especially with it being a normal trap card. It has the ability that if you control a Fiend monster, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. Then you can send a Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard, which starts stacking the graveyard with Fiend monsters that you can use for later, which is really, really nice, especially with your copies of the Chandelier and Stovey Torby. Being able to get themselves back out of the graveyard is really good with this card. I then play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence just negates monster effects and locks down columns, so this card is a really, really good 3-of in this build. I then play 3 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. Compulse is just so good. Being able to bounce a monster back to your opponent's hand is really good, especially if you bounce the normal summon. This card has always really been good because it's a 1-for-1 basically, that you're bouncing an opponent's monster, getting it off the field, and then also activating the effects of all of your different Labrynth cards because a monster left the field by a normal traps effect. I then play 3 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. Now I did consider cutting this card down to 2 and playing a single copy of Labrynth Archfiend in this deck as well, giving us an additional boss monster, but I ended up with 3 copies of this card and really, really like it because it has the ability that you can target a monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon it to your field, but its effects are negated. Then you can banish 1 monster from both fields that have the same type as each other, which is a really good effect to be able to just get rid of monsters on the field using this effect. But you can also just basically use this card as a monster reborn as well, because it has the ability to just target any monster in opponent's graveyard and bring it back to the field, which is really, really good. I then play 3 copies of Dogmatica Punishment. Dogmatica Punishment is really good because we don't have to go into the extra deck all that much, and this card can actually turn into a double pop, which is really good with our Elder Entity Nist that we have in the extra deck. Letting us target a face-up monster that your opponent controls and send a monster with equal or higher attack from our extra deck to the graveyard, and if you destroy destroy that monster, but it locks us out of the extra deck for the rest of the turn and the following turn, which is not that big of a deal because we're basically just using this card to pop 2 cards on the field. And then play 3 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. Rivalry of Warlords is just so good because all we're going into is Fiends anyways for the most part with this deck. So this card is really, really good, especially against the Sprite matchup and against Tearlament that are playing Danger. This card can really be impactful to stop the opponent from swarming the field, so we can just handle them with all sorts of different trap cards like Compulse or Dogmatic of Punishment and even Ice Dragon Prison. But you kind of got to watch out for Ice Dragon Prison because if you already have a Fiend, you can only bring back a Fiend to your side of the field, which is why I consider dropping this down to 2 for a copy of Labrynth Archfiend. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a lot of 2-ofs in the extra deck. We're going to start out with 2 copies of Unchained Abomination because it is a Fiend monster and going to pop up to 3 cards per turn, which is really, really awesome. And then play a single copy of Access Code. You don't have to play the Access Code. It's just a really good card overall if you want to play this card. You can just play a 3rd copy of Unchained Abomination if you're looking for a little bit more budget of an option. I'm then playing 2 copies of Nightmare Unicorn because it is a Fiend monster that can spin stuff off the field. So this card is really good. 2 copies of Nightmare Phoenix to pop spells and traps, and 2 copies of Nightmare Cerberus to pop monsters. These are really good overall just because they are Fiend monsters and they can pop spells, traps, and spin cards off the field. I then play 3 copies of Link Kuriboh. Link Kuriboh is just really good overall to work with your copy of your Jack in the deck, which is just really, really good. I love this card overall because your Absolute King Backjack can be linked away and then summon out this card to your side of the field, and then you basically get your copy of your Backjack's effect, which is absolutely amazing. I then play 3 copies of Elder Entity Nist. Elder Entity Nist is our Dogmatic of Punishment target to get us an additional pop when you activate your copy of Dogmatic of Punishment. So this card is a definite 3-of in the deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck overall. If you guys have never played Labrynth before, you definitely should give this deck a try. It's really, really fun. It's absolutely insane how powerful it is. And we're just getting new support out of Darkwing Blast, which is going to make this deck even crazier. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.